There's been some breaking news today. The Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen, has fired or asked Roman Cabanac to step down as his chief of staff. Now, this story has been broken by News 24 and its legal reporter, Karen Morn. Basically, what the story is saying, and it's a developing story, there are very few details in this particular story. It says the following. Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen has asked his controversial Chief of Staff, Roman Cabanac, to resign. Asked for the reason for his decision, John Steenhuisen said it was clear that the controversy around the right-leaning podcaster's appointment was detracting from the excellent work this department is doing. He told News 24 that he would comment further once the HR processes are completed. Now, there are going to be significant HR processes in respect to this. Some quick comments. I do think that John Steenhuisen is right, that this particular appointment really came with a lot of negative attention. And that's partly because of the things that Roman has said over the years on his podcast. There are multiple reports on that. I'm not really going to traverse that. I think the most difficult one for him is that he insulted President Ramaphosa. He called him something very, very derogatory that I cannot repeat here. It's very difficult for you to work or challenge in a coalition your supervisor, your boss, because President Ramaphosa is Steenhuisen's boss. How are you going to challenge him or have a diplomatic relationship with him when your chief of staff insulted him in the most derogatory of terms? You see, a chief of staff is not a typical position. It's one of your most trusted employees in a department. It's the person who you are really giving a lot of responsibility to operate your office. So for you to then have a person in that particular office who insulted your boss, but has also said so many other things, I think put him in a very, very difficult position. It was also interesting to see the number of people that opposed this appointment. You had journalists from News 24. You had journalists from Daily Maverick. You had the Institute of Race Relations, which is typically very supportive of the Democratic Alliance and also of John Steenhuisen. You also had other voices raising the issues around some of the statements that were made. So he was facing a lot of opposition from a lot of different places. It wasn't just an issue of social media or the left. Even some people from the Social Research Foundation, that institution that has been doing polling for the Democratic Alliance and other entities, they also had people from there, Gareth Van Onselen, saying this guy is not a good appointment. So a lot of problems with the appointment, and it was creating a distraction, but it was also creating a barrier. Roman tried to address some of these issues yesterday. He issued a letter. Let me read you the letter that he wrote yesterday and published on his social media. Statement of COS to the Minister of Agriculture regarding recent events. Dear fellow South Africans, in recent weeks, there has been heated debate regarding my appointment as Chief of Staff to the Minister of Agriculture. On 1 September, I briefly addressed this on my X page, stating that I accepted the role to contribute to our nation's growth, food security, and economic stability, and that I would work with anyone who shares these goals. However, I realize that more needs to be said. I acknowledge that some of my past online statements were simplistic and controversial, leading to strong reactions. I understand and respect the concerns which have been raised, especially considering my new non-partisan role. I remain committed to building a better South Africa for us all. In the past, I built my brand as a critic of the previous government. I pushed boundaries to gain attention on social media and sometimes made divisive, idle, and poorly considered statements in the heat of online journalism. While some of my criticisms were well founded, I also admit that others were insensitive and provocative and driven by the desire to invite debate. In 2024, both our country and I changed. It dawned on me that my approach had not been constructive. Judging books by covers is how many online conversations go, and I realized that it is better to help read or write the book than to critique its title. The political landscape shifted, and I acknowledged that it was my first real opportunity to contribute to government affairs in South Africa. When the chance came, I took it, driven by a genuine desire to build a better future for all South Africans. I asked those South Africans who are against me to reconsider their judgment of me, or at least afford me the chance to do the job and to evaluate me after it's done, just as they have with others who have faced public scrutiny or even criminal convictions, but are working towards greater good for the sake of the government of national unity. I am committed to working with anyone who shares the goal of a prosperous, united South Africa. Together, we can ensure food security, create jobs, and build a thriving economy. Yours patriotically, Roman Cabanac. I don't think I'm pronouncing his surname correctly, but I'm not doing it intentionally. So that's the letter that he wrote yesterday. But clearly, it was maybe too late, and pressure had already mounted on him. I want to say I think he made a lot of enemies when he was doing a lot of the things that he was doing. And those enemies were in government, they were in the ANC, they were in other quarters. So it's very possible that at the end, he just had too many people who didn't want to work with him within that coalition in and of itself. Also, this was giving the DA a very bad name because the DA said, no, we're not involved in this. This is not cadre deployment. We don't deploy people. But when your leader appoints somebody, that reflects on the whole organization. You cannot distance the actions of any leader from the organization that they represent. Those are actions which reflected on the organization. And it's something that cannot be ignored. It's something that cannot be downplayed. And I think it was also creating a lot of friction within the party because the party also has this other scandal of Ronaldo House, who made offensive statements as well. So it was beginning to look to some people that, look, John is willing to keep these people around him, give these people opportunities, even though they've said or done problematic things. And that's something that when you're in a coalition with the ANC can be very difficult to accomplish in terms of keeping them around. And you can't keep it pushing and then have people like that around you. Also, you can't be trying to fight some real big fights. You know, they want to challenge the Bella Bill. They want to challenge the NHI and the implementation thereof. And in order to be able to have good debates and to argue your point, you need to let go of anybody who can be undermining your objectives to do that. And that's one of the things that I think has happened here. I want to say something that you may not agree with. I actually think that Roman has got something to contribute. I think he's a talented public speaker, and he's been somebody who's been able to articulate the concerns of people who feel marginalized and who gravitate towards the right wing. But I do think that he has to do a lot of work to understand the people who disagree with him and to understand how to lead people who disagree with him and how to find those people and engage with them in a more respectful way. I think that if he does that work and really tries to elevate his politics and not maybe move from a position of anger or retaliation because of all of these developments, but really to try to say, look, I'm passionate about politics. I tried to launch a party, the Capitalist Party. It didn't work out. I got close to John Steenhuisen, I got close to Helen Zille, and I managed to get an opportunity to get this position as chief of staff. However, some of my staff caught up with me and I had made lots of enemies. They were very vocal. I insulted the president. I said so many things. I undermined Sharpeville. There's so many things that he did that I don't want to necessarily discuss in detail. But there has to be a recognition on his part that a lot of this stuff wouldn't have happened if he had navigated himself differently. And if he really wants to be a national leader, then he's going to have to sit down and have conversations with people who love him, but people also who can challenge him and show him what he needs to do to really be able to find a role at a national level in leadership, if that's what he desires to. I don't like this idea that people don't deserve second chances or that people should not occupy certain spaces and places because of stuff they've done, because I think human beings make mistakes. Human beings are not perfect. But at the point at which you are asked to explain yourself, I think you have to do better than what he did. So, for instance, he says, I acknowledge that some of my past statements were simplistic and controversial, leading to strong reactions. They were more than that. They were not just simplistic and controversial. They were offensive sometimes. They were hurtful. And some of them were problematic in ways that I don't want to just dissect right now. But that's what led to those kind of reactions. If you make it seem as if Xhosa people are unwelcome in the Western Cape, for instance, that's not simplistic. It's not controversial. It's hurtful. It's ahistoric. Because why shouldn't they be able to go to the Western Cape like anybody else? It's part of South Africa. Why shouldn't Xhosa people be able to go there? Many of them have roots which go back there as well. So why wouldn't they be able to go? Anybody should be able to live anywhere that they like in South Africa as a South African citizen. And for him to be able to discourage that was something that I think would have offended them in a way that was more than just that he said something simplistic and controversial. When he said, in my past, I built a brand as a critic of the previous government. I pushed boundaries to gain attention on social media and sometimes made divisive, idle, and poorly considered statements in the heat of online journalism. Right? That's some of the stuff that he did, but he doesn't appreciate that it's hurtful. He says, while some of my criticisms were well-founded, I also admit that others were insensitive and provocative, driven by the desire to invite debate. Then he said that, in 2024, both our country and I changed. But he didn't explain how he changed. How did you change? If you're going to make an apology, you have to do more to acknowledge the pain that you caused, acknowledge why the people who felt pain felt that pain. And also, if this is a public process, to explain actually how you have actually tried to take steps to reshape yourself, your worldview, and your approach to things. Because when he said in 2024, both our country and I changed, and it dawned on me that my approach had not been constructive, it almost seems as if he was just saying that, look, I've been able to get this opportunity. It's a well-paying job, 1.4 million a year. And now I've changed because I realize I can't keep being divisive, simplistic, controversial, insensitive while I'm working for the government in a non-partisan position. And by the way, it is a non-partisan position. So, but he doesn't explain, aside from the reasons which benefit him, that he needs to get this job, and in order to occupy that job, he can no longer be saying the things that he used to say. He doesn't articulate whether his views have changed or anything to that effect. That's what made people not respond well to the apology. And I think that, or this semi-apology, it wasn't even a full apology, right? I think that his heart is in the right place, but he didn't go all the way. He should have gone all the way, fully apologize, really accept that some of the things you did are not right. And there was also, at the same time that he was trying to make an apology, his friends were still defending him, etc. So if you're apologizing but your friends are defending you, then it makes us wonder whether or not this is a real thing, or if what's happening with your friends is the real thing, and then you're just playing public relations with this thing. It wasn't well received. I think that he has to go back to the drawing board and really think about how he's going to strategize his re-engagement with public office. Maybe he'll go back to his podcast. Hopefully he tries to navigate the podcast differently this time around. But I actually wish him well. I think that I wish him well in whatever is his next endeavor. For John Steenhuisen and the Ministry of Agriculture, I think that now there's a real concern that he has no staff members working in his office. He has 11 people that he said that are supposed to be part of his support staff. He has no appointments whatsoever. His special advisor is not qualified for the role. He's tried to appoint 3 other people who are not qualified for the role. And now he has lost his chief of staff. So he's going to have to really make sure that he gets, people who can help him staff his department. There are professionals, brilliant professionals within the Democratic Alliance who can serve in these posts and do so in a way that doesn't bring the kind of attention that these other appointments have brought. Even though he has got people that he's worked with, he's been comfortable working with for a long period of time, if those people do not have the qualifications, accept and try to build new relationships with the people who do have the qualifications, who can be provided for you to do the job. If you are sincere about doing the job, we are now close to 75 days since the cabinet was announced by President Ramaphosa, and he has not filled any vacancy in his cabinet office in terms of the support staff for the minister. This is a serious thing, and it almost looks as if now people have to start also asking about your competency and your capacity to run an office. John is coming out of parliament where you did not necessarily have the same type of office. I did mention a few times before that one of my concerns about him is that he's never really occupied an administrative role in a company or in a school or anything to that effect where he would learn how to run an office effectively. And 75 days in without a staff, I think it signifies that he is having challenges with that transition. It's not impossible. He has a lot of support, but he needs to be able to do that and to do it well. So yeah, those are my thoughts about this story. I think it was a mistake from John Steenhuisen to go down this particular avenue, considering the delicate nature of the coalition, considering the type of attention that would come from it. I think this is the right decision to put some distance between himself and Roman. As the minister, you shouldn't spend all of your days defending an employee and what that employee has said. And if it's distracting from your work, if it's undermining your party or creating people to cast aspersions on your party in ways that you can't really afford as the leader of that entity, I think that at some point you do have to cut ties. Under labor law, I'm not sure what benefits or whether they'll have to give him a golden handshake. I wonder if there's some labor lawyers watching this, but I'm curious what happens to him in terms of the HR process in and of itself, because, it's not so easy to dismiss somebody, but I wonder if there's a window period in and of itself. So that's where things stand. We'll wait and see whether or not the story is updated further. But as things stand right now, John Steenhuisen has fired Roman Cabanac from being his chief of staff. What do you think about this whole saga? The appointment, the criticism, the moment, the apology, the half apology, and even now the moment and the announcement that he's not going to be in the office. Let's have a conversation. Till the next one.